Hey everybody, welcome to the full button tutorial on the 2022 Toyota 4Runner SR5. In this style video, we're going to break down all of the interior buttons, typically from left to right. Then we'll work our way down to the shifter, go to the overhead features, and finish up with the screen. So with that being said, let's begin. The very first thing I'd like to go over with you is, with the smart key system, as long as the key is on you, all you have to do is press the brake and the push button starter once. On the door, you have 4 buttons for the windows. You have 1 touch windows down all around and 1 touch up. So with a hard push, the window goes down, and with a hard pull, the window goes up. In front of the window buttons, you'll see a raised button, which is going to operate the door locks. If you feel in the night without looking, there's an elevated bump here to signify the lock button so that you don't even have to look at the button. In front of those, there's a separate button here that does not have an LED like some other Toyotas have. If you push that down, the windows are locked. If you push it back up, they're unlocked. Below the dash on the driver's seat, it is electronic. I have the forward and back button here. I can actually twist the seat for more of a recline feel, and I can also recline like this. If I go up and down, I can elevate the seat height. And back here, I have the lumbar support forward or back for some extra support on the lower back. Like most 4Runners, you will see all-weather mats, which do lock into the floor on both sides, the most important side being the driver's side. By doing a quarter turn on this lock, you can detach the mat. Just make sure it's locked back into place, and you'll see the arrows all line up. Always test by giving a little tug to make sure it doesn't slide under your brake pedal. Working our way up to the dashboard, there's only 1 lever here, which is going to be for popping the hood. The gas tank does not have a locking lever like some Toyotas. All you have to do is give it a pull. Underneath the steering wheel, there's a pull down lever where you can telescope the steering wheel or raise it and lower it like so. Once you find the spot that's good for you, you just push the button back into place. And working our way up, we have a couple empty slots for accessories, but there's a button here where I can actually pick between the 2 different voltages and wattages that I'm using for my accessories. It will default to whatever it needs, and next to that I have the button for the defrosting wiper blades. Fun fact about the defrosting wiper blades, it's not a fancy wiper that you have to replace with an electronic piece. They're actually defrosting wires in the windshield, which saves you money on replacing your wipers. And moving our way up the dash is the adjustment to the mirror. So when I push the L, I can toggle the left mirror. All the way to the R, I can toggle the right side mirror, and then the center position is neutral, so that if I hit this for any reason, it doesn't accidentally change the setting to the mirrors. Next to the mirror adjustment, I have the brightness to the gauges and the speedometer cluster. So this little symbol here is a Speedo Cluster with a little light bulb, and we have the brightness level. It does have a clicking motion into the brightest, and then you can dim it down like so. Next to the Speedo Cluster brightness adjustment, I have the auto high beams. So when I turn the headlights all the way on, if the 4Runner is equipped with auto headlights, there'll be an auto section, but since we're in an SR5, we don't have that. So when the headlights are on, I can turn on the auto high beams by clicking it in, or I can turn them off by clicking it out. You'll see a slightly recessed position to signify that they're on. Once I selected the auto high beams and I push the stalk forward, a little A will pop up here above the MID, signifying that the auto high beam system is on and active, and then the blue symbol for high beams will go on and off when the truck decides it needs the high beams. And back to the steering wheel stalk, we have a couple different positions here. The first being the off position. Daytime running lights, which will just be some incandescent, kind of like a light white color, not the LEDs that you saw in the review video. Those are going to be in the front only for daytime driving. There will be no taillights and no interior lights lit, just increases your visibility to other drivers during the day. The next symbol is your parking lights. So that will light up the tail lights and also the orange side markers, but not your headlights. Your interior lights will in fact light up, which is optimal for parking so that people can identify you're parked and you can see how to use the controls on the inside at nighttime. And then of course, the main headlights. Next to that, I have just a simple ring-shaped lever here for the fog lights. So there's your fog light symbol. This has the fog lights off, that has the fog lights on. Now on the MID, by the way, this is just showing you to push the stalk forward to put your brights on. So this would be in the regular position. That would be the high beams. So there are a couple different symbols on the MID here. The one on the very top left is the fog lights. You'll see go on and off. The one in the middle is a light bulb symbol. That means all of the headlight and taillight system is on. So if I go to parking lights, that turns off. But when I go back to headlights, the symbols come on. I can turn the fog lights off and just have headlights, which is why the fog light symbol went off. If I turn off the auto high beams, which is right over here, you'll see the auto high beam symbol turned off and the high beams are actually on. If I click it back in, the truck decides that it doesn't need them right now because it's bright outside. And now I turn the system off. So if I don't like the auto high beam feature, I can turn it off and just operate the high beams like this. But when the high beams are on and I turn on the auto high beams, you'll see the auto high beam symbol is on in green. On to the next steering wheel stalk. So the steering wheel stalk on the right side is going to operate the wipers. From here on in will operate the front wiper controls. From here on out operates the back wiper. So there's a couple different positions that we can click it down into. If I clicked it down once, which I won't do now because it's dry out, I go into the intermittent phase, which means the front wipers are only going to go from time to time. I can change how often, whether they go a little sooner, less, or even less. Say it's only slightly misting outside by doing that. If I click it down again, the stalk will actually go into low mode, which means the wipers will just go forward and back slowly. Clicking down to its third and last position means that they will go fast, continuously. Now you'll see here there's a little symbol on the top. That symbol means if I pull this towards me, it's going to wash the front windshield. The square-shaped windshield here represents the rear windshield. So what I would do for this is I would twist this all the way to the right onto this position and it'll squirt the rear windshield, or I can twist it back, or I can generally push it away in most Toyotas. But there are really two main positions here for the rear wiper: intermittent, which is once in a while, and on, which is going to be back and forth slowly. The third stalk on the steering wheel is on the bottom right. That operates the cruise control system. So you'll see a couple different symbols here. You'll see hold with a regular speedometer, no car, and then a separate symbol, which is a speedometer with a car. Also notice the arrow is on the top left versus the top right. This just signifies that you have two different cruise control systems. The first one being the old school one that we've known for many years, the constant speed cruise control that has no sensitivity setting. And then that one is the dynamic radar cruise control, which will actually sense when you're coming up on a vehicle and slow down and match its speed. And you can change the following distance with this button right over here between three different following distances. So to use that cruise control, you would hit the on and off portion. And when you push that on the MID, which I can't show you now because we're not moving, but it would say radar ready, and you'll get the little symbol there. Now I'm going to turn it back off by hitting the off button. If I push and hold, like it showed down below, the symbol changes, which you probably just saw. Let me get up close so you can see. There's the radar cruise control, turn it off, press and hold, and the symbol changed to the constant cruise control, which is the old school way. So you have the choice between the two different cruise control systems that you want to use. Once I selected radar on and I picked between this or that cruise control system, I can push down to set it like this. Now that's not going to show on the screen here because we're not actually driving, but it'll say set and you'll see a digital view of the speed you had it set to. So you no longer have to look at the analog here to see what speed is set to. It's going to show you right there. To increase and decrease the speed, I can go up like this to increase the speed, or down like this to decrease the speed. I can push this into cancel or turn it off completely, or I can just simply push the brake and it turns off the cruise control. But remember, while I'm in the radar cruise control, which is the default, see the symbol there? Once I hit set, which is the bottom little piece here, I can change the following distance between three different following distances. And that's the third stalk on the steering wheel and how the cruise control works. Next up, onto the steering wheel. On the left side of the steering wheel, we have a couple different pads here. Well, one main pad and a couple different buttons. The main pad on the left will operate the volume to the music or the phone call. And then I have the up and down selection for my radio presets. So my songs or my AM, FM presets or XM radio, that will scroll through those. The little corner has a person speaking. If I push that once.
Before you start, consider viewing.
It makes me wait until it beeps to make the command, and you'll see once I'm commanding, the little blue waves click in, and once I stop talking, it'll let me know if it recognized what I'm saying. So I'm going to turn that off there. It did recognize what I was saying because it went blink. If it doesn't recognize what you're saying, it's going to go like badunk. So I'm just going to cancel that because it's recognizing me. It's just calculating what I'm saying. If you're connected to Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, when you press and hold this for 2 seconds, you're either going to get your Siri orb on the bottom or your Google Assistant's going to pop up, and it's going to basically let you run commands that way. So you have 2 different audio systems for audio commands that you can use. A quick push for the Toyota factory one, or a push and hold for Siri or Google Assistant when you're plugged in. Down below we have a mode button here, which has a little symbol of a microphone being cut out, and it says hold. So when I push mode, it's going to go between the different music modes like AM, FM, Bluetooth, Sirius radio. However, what's cool is, and not all Toyotas even say hold, so in some Toyotas it's a secret button. If you push and hold, it will pause and mute the music. To resume the music, you just push the volume button up or down, and the music will continue playing. So that's convenient, so you can just shut the music off right away. Down below, a dedicated button for picking up calls and a dedicated button for hanging up calls. So when a call comes through, when you're connected to Bluetooth, the screen will show you who's calling. And yes, you can pick up or end the call or ignore it here, but for your convenience, just with the push of your thumb, you can decide what you're doing right there. On the right side of the steering wheel is a separate pad with a symmetrical corner button to the left. So the look is the same here. We have a pad, separate button, and a little double pusher here. So this pad has 4 arrows, a select button and a back button, which all operate the MID, which is the multi-information display, which is coming next. So when I go side to side, it's going to go through a couple different menus, which you'll see here. We're going to go over those momentarily. I can even go up and down through different pages. You can see the scroller bar on the right. And I can select something. Some items you have to push and hold to actually select, so you don't accidentally select them. And then the back button, which like I said is all operated in the MID. If I push and hold this, I can set a favorites page. So say this digital speed page is my favorite. When I push and hold this, it will say switch to the registered screen, and I hit yes. And now if I'm in a different screen, all I have to do is push this favorites page and it goes right to my favorite. So if I'm lost somewhere in the MID and I want to see my digital speed, now it's my favorite page, boom, and it goes to my favorite. Something that was very common in a couple generations ago of the Highlanders, RAV4s, etc. That is nice to still have here. And you're familiar with this button here already, which we discussed. That's the sensitivity / following distance to the cruise control. But down below we have a little symbol of a car going out of its lane. That's the lane departure alert. So when you push that button, you're going to get a little symbol of a car in green, just like that there, see? That's the car going out of its lane. That lets you know that the lane departure alert is available. Now it's only available above certain speeds. So look, when I turn that on, it tells you it's unavailable below approximately 32 miles an hour. So it's more helpful when you're going a little quicker. That will beep you and it will alert when you're going out of your lane, just to let you know. All right, so we're gonna do the Speedo Cluster and then the MID. So starting with the Speedo Cluster, you have a nice simple analog display here. On the left are the RPMs. So if I give it a little rev, I can see the RPMs. It's not a digital fantasy, it's a real sensor with the needle here. It's a very easy reader, which is nice. On the top left, I have my engine temperature, sitting nice and pretty in the middle since it's warmed up. On the top right, I have my fuel level. Always great to see it full in a 4Runner, and a little arrow pointing to the left in case I'm new to the 4Runner and forgot that the gas cap is actually on the left side, the driver's side. On the bottom right, I have the analog speed, but of course on the MID, which is next, we're going to see the digital speed, which is an option. Down below, which might be a little tough to see, there's a little stalk. When I push the stalk on the bottom of the MID, you'll see I have different trips in the odometer and off. If I push and hold, I can clear the trips. So I can track 2 different trips. Most people do 1 trip for their maintenance, 1 trip for their gas mileage, like how many miles per tank, odometer, or you can turn it off completely. I'll just leave it on the odometer there. That's the Speedo Cluster. When I put my signals on, you'll see them nice and recessed and bright green on the top left and right there. And then if there are any other warning lights, let me turn this off. I'm going to put in accessory mode so you can just see what some of the other warning lights look like. Most of them are by the Speedo or the TAC. And when I start it up, here's our presentation. No waving needles, just simple stuff with a little space trip. That's the Speedo Cluster. Next up, MID. So for the MID, which is the multi-information display, which is pretty much the driver's helper screen, that's going to be the screen that gives you pertinent information for your drive and some useful stuff like gas mileage. Like we saw on the right side of the steering wheel, we can use those arrows left and right or up and down to go through the different menus. Notice the lane departure alert is on, which I can turn off right there. On the top left, it says I'm in park. If I go into reverse, it'll show me R for reverse, D for drive, or if I shift over, I can go through the gears. So I don't really have to look down at my shifter because I know exactly where I am by looking at my screen, which is nice because you can keep your eyes up where they belong. I also can see the outside temperature, and on the bottom I have the odometer, which if I push the little stalk, you'll see it goes to different trips, etc. But using the arrows, I can go left to right. So the first menu is the I menu. Then I have the truck menu, navigation menu, if equipped with the in-house navigation, music menu, safety sense menu, warnings menu, and settings. Starting with I for information, we'll go to the top screen. See the scroller bar there? So I got my average. It'll tell me the time elapsed since I started the vehicle, my average speed, and my average miles per gallon. The calculation can be slightly skewed if you just filled up the tank. So I always advise doing a real hard calculation by tracking your mileage. If you really want to know as you progress through the tank, the calculation gets a lot more accurate. Down here is some more advanced stuff for my calculating of gas mileage. It'll even show my throttle, my range, which people like to see, and an eco indicator. So this will show me if I'm driving more economically, which will help inspire you to save some gas on the 4Runner. The digital speed, which we saw before, and the sway warning. So if you're a tired driver, that lane departure alert system actually has a little helper in the background called sway warning, which can detect the patterns of a sleepy driver, and if you have those patterns, it's going to alert you and tell you to take a break, and you can count down your time until your break is over or until you take rest to be sure you actually remember to rest. Could save your life. Down below is just a blank screen in case you want it to be blank, which is nice so you don't like all the clutter. Over to the right, steering angle for when I'm steering, which is kind of useful for when you're turning or if you're off-roading. Pretty cool. Individual tire pressure. Now, I read the book on this vehicle and the Tacoma. The book will admit that this is a very close estimate, so it might not be spot on, but it is pretty darn close. But do be advised, it may be helpful to grab a little actual tire pressure meter or gauge and check it at least once a month on your own to be sure not only is it accurate, but you know that you're being engaged with the most important part of the vehicle, your tires. That's what connects you to the pavement. I'm sure you've heard that plenty of times. Navigation is pretty simple. While you're driving, you'll see a quick view at a glance at what direction you're going in, and it'll show you the road you're driving on, and it may even show some speed limit signs, stop signs, etc. Not a ton of information, but I like to leave this in the background on my Tacoma. Next to the right is the audio menu. So say my screen is predominantly taken up by more important things like my map, but I'm just wondering real quick what song is playing. I can go to this and I can see what song and artist are playing. Over here, this is just going to show you at a glance what systems are on and off, just in case I'm wondering, say I'm new to the vehicle. That's just going to give you a quick glance of the safety sense system. And here's a very useful menu, the warnings menu. And what's unique about this menu is this menu communicates with you the most because it changes. So when it's time for service, there'll be a message stored in there saying service coming soon. It's usually within 500 miles of your 5K increments. And that little orange symbol there is going to light up orange, and then it's going to like go down to the bottom and stay there to remind you to check it so that you don't forget. And that makes sense because if there is something the truck's trying to tell you, you wouldn't want it to just show you once and then not show you ever again. So it's going to be more persistent, which some people don't like, but I appreciate. Also, if there's something wrong with some of the sensors, if there's check engine, anything, it's going to store it in there and constantly remind you. And then here, a little bit more of an advanced page, we have the settings. So we have lane departure alert, pre-collision system, vehicle settings, and meter settings. So up to lane departure alert, if I press the select button, I can change the sensitivity from high to standard. Pretty cool. Sway warning for the sleeping, I can turn on and off, which I suggest you leave on because you just never know when you're tight on sleep. And the sway sensitivity, I can change from low to high to standard. When I hit the back button on the pad on the steering wheel, I can go down to pre-collision system. I press the button once for select, and I can turn the system on or off. But notice when I turn it off, I get this little symbol down here that's gonna stay there. That's a picture of a car crashing into another car. The pre-collision system is off. It's important that the system reminds you it's off, because say you turned it off and you forgot, you would want to know right away if it's on or off. So that will remind you all the time that that's off. Of course, I'm going to turn it back on, and when it's on, you can change the sensitivity between high, medium, or low. Comes from the factory at medium, which is fine for most people. I'll hit the back button down to vehicle settings. I have the tire pressure warning system, so when I select that, I can set the pressure and change the wheel set for when I rotate the tires. Here's where I have the rear seat reminder. So if you have kids, friends, dogs, pets, gear that you keep in the back that you don't want to forget but could possibly forget, can't imagine why you would forget, the 4Runner can actually remind you every time you turn the truck off to check your back seats just in case. So say you're frazzled and frayed and you're working a lot of hours and you got the kids back there, and there was a time when you ran into the store and literally forgot to bring them with you, the 4Runner won't let that happen. Of course, you can turn it off, but I'm going to leave that on. I hit the back button and I go down to meter settings. This is where I can change the language, the units. I can turn the eco badge. That's a little eco reminder. I can turn that on and off. That's a little green symbol that's going to pop up on the bottom right to let you know when you're driving more economically and when you're not. So if you're driving easy, it's going to pop up down there like a little cookie to remind you, good job, you're getting good gas mileage, and then go away when you're getting on it. The page savings, like I can switch the settings of the favorite page button that I showed you before. For pop-up display, here's a little bit more advanced stuff for how the pop-ups for these things pop up on the screen. And I can go back to default settings. Say I'm selling the vehicle or I kind of mess things up. Hitting the back button, that's everything on this page. If I go over to the right again, I'm back to the beginning. And remember, when I hit that little favorite button, I can go to my favorite screen, which if you remember, is the digital speed. And that concludes the MID, the multi-information display. Next up, let's take a break and do some buttons near the shifter. So a quick brain breather, buttons near the shifter. Inside the center console, just like the last generation Tundra, I have a cool little box here with a slot for tissues. So I can take a travel tissue pack and run the tissue through, and I'll always have tissues. So if you got a runny nose, or you got allergies, or you got somebody that cries a lot, right there. There's also a symbol of a pencil. Now, I don't know if you're a carpenter driving a 4Runner, but most people keep pens with them. You can fit most pencils and pens in here. You're not going to have a ton of variety. I'd say a Bic pen, something simple with a little cap, that'll fit right in there nicely. The V5s are going to kind of fit weird, but down below we have a huge square box with an old school 12-volt plug and pretty much no buttons in here to push. Couple empty slots for more advanced features. Say it has heated seats, cooled seats, etc. Here is a button you'll love. That's the auto down for the rear windshield. So with a quick push, back windshield goes down. And for up, I do a quick pull, back windshield goes up, which is great for airflow. These don't exactly count as buttons, but you have some slide out adjusters for the size of your cup holders. These are convenient because they're very easy to clean. A little less convenient to clean, but you can fit smaller items here, like little Yetis and stuff like that. Before we get to the shifter, we have the 4x4 system. So some people get confused. They think this white thing is the selector, but the selector is actually this little dim guy here that'll light up blue at nighttime. High 2 is where you're going to spend most of your time. That's two-wheel drive. That's going to be the back wheels. You can turn it into high 4 while moving. It's going to electronically lock in. It's going to blink a couple times on the dash. There's your four-wheel drive system. And while moving, it will click in. Give it just a sec. There we go. You just got to move a couple feet. And you can use the four-wheel high in reverse or drive. So I'm just going to back into my spot real quick. To take it out, I just twist it like this. It'll blink a few times and it's back in two-wheel drive. To use the four-wheel low, which is your low-speed four-wheel drive system, good for about up to 25 miles per hour, not much faster than that, you would have to come to a stop and go into neutral and then select reverse or drive. So let me show you how that's done. So say we're driving, we go into 4 high, it's going to snap into place, the light's going to go solid in just a moment. There we go, we're clicked in. Then we come to a stop, we go to neutral. Then we select low 4. It's going to turn off the pre-collision system. It's going to let me know 4 low is on. It's also going to tell me that the traction control is off and the vehicle stability control is off, so I get maximum power to all the wheels. Now I can select reverse or drive. So I'm in 4 low, reversing right now. And all 4 wheels are locked in. Now to come out of 4 low, I have to come to a stop again, go to neutral, go back into 4 high, and it will take me out of 4 low, and all those orange warnings turn off because the system's come back on. And then I can continue driving in 4-wheel high, or if I want to go back into 2-wheel, while I'm in gear, I can technically just, there you go, no push and turn. And while I'm backing up in my spot, you'll see it just clicked out of 4-wheel high. So in summary, 4 high on the fly means you can change it while moving. 4 low, take it slow, come to a stop, neutral, and have a blast. Also near the shifter is the upgraded $129 dual USB port, which has a super bright blue light behind here, and it is a rapid charger with a clicker cover. It's definitely a little tough from the factory, and what's interesting is the door to the main USB opens up the opposite way. This is going to be the USB that will charge you, but mainly is made for connecting Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. So it's not going to be a wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. If you're new to Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, it means if you have an Apple smartphone or an Android smartphone, when you're plugged in there, you can actually access some of the phone apps right on the screen here that were on your phone, specifically the navigation apps like Waze, Google Maps, Apple Maps. And if you have the Android phone, you would need to download the Android Auto app on your phone, and then it will let you do what the Apple phone already lets you do. Pretty cool. Of course, you can run the music through there, different music apps and some other things like that. If you're not into that stuff, you can use the map that comes in-house when it has the package, and then you can just connect it wirelessly through Bluetooth and listen to music that way, which we will discuss soon. But before we get to the screen, we have to talk about the climate control and then the overhead features. So for the climate control, you have 3 main knobs. The first knob here is going to operate your fan speed. Now for lighting purposes, I got to do it at an angle. There we go, that's a little better. You see the off position, and then a variation of from low to high. Simple, that's how you operate the fan. In the middle, we have the air direction, very simple to use. Up front on my body and face, in between with a little bit of feet, equalized between face and feet, a little bit more feet, but tiny bit of face, all feet, mostly feet but a little bit of windshield, feet and windshield and equally divided, mostly windshield with a tiny bit of feet, and then all windshield. There's no dedicated windshield defroster button, so if you need a rapid windshield defrostment, you will just have to turn it all the way to the right. And what's convenient is you'll notice the most important setting is just all the way to the right. So you'll remember if you need to see out of the windshield fast, just turn it all the way to the right and you're good to go. The right dial is going to be temp. So you see the little blue square here. You'll see the little red square. All the way to the left it will say max AC. So I can vary my temp. No digital display, nothing to break, nothing expensive, just a turn dial with a nice rubberized finish here, very easy to use. And if I go all the way down here to cold, there's a separate setting which gives a little more resistance for max AC for the really hot days. But don't forget, the truck knows to put on recirculate when you have the AC on, because that's going to cool the air that's already cold. Now for some reason, see I turned that up a little bit, I have the AC on, but I'm not on max AC. I still suggest turning on recirculate, because you'll cool air that's already cold instead of forcing the truck to take outside air and cool it. It'll put less strain on the system. Also, you can use this to filter your air if you're behind a garbage truck, you're going through a tunnel. Just do be advised, it can cause fogging in certain weather conditions. And then there's your AC button just like that. You can also turn the AC off and put the temperature up a little higher, and say you don't want the outside air coming in, you can just recirculate it but have a little bit of warmth. But the most efficient way is these paired for the hot weather, and then these off for the cooler weather, like so. And the last button on the climate control is just another big button that has the rear defroster. It shows the windshield and the side mirrors. So when I push this, that big back windshield that goes down is going to defrost, and so are the side mirrors. And that concludes the climate control. Let's talk about some of the overhead features. Overhead features, not a ton going on. A couple buttons with one that a lot of people ask about, and some lights. So starting over here, each side has a simple slider cover for the mirror with a little candle light right there. When you unclip, instead of this sliding in and out, there's a separate plastic piece for when that sun gets in that awkward spot and it's killing you on the peripheral. The mirror is a defrosting, I'm sorry, why did I say that? Is an auto dimming mirror. There's no need for this mirror to defrost. There's a need for that mirror to defrost. There's a little green light that shows you the auto dimming feature is active. Of course, I can turn it off. And then there's a little light sensor. So what that does is, when there's bright lights coming through the back windshield, it's going to get dark on its own, and it's actually going to reduce the amount of light that shoots into your eyes. So it makes that tinted glass in the back even darker. Above, we have the sunglass case with a nice soft backing so you can put lenses in. Then we have a couple controls here for the 4x4 system. We have the traction control / vehicle stability control, which basically you'll have turned off when you're using the 4x4 system. The active traction control, which will sense when one or more of the wheels have lost traction, and it will cut power to them so that the wheels that have traction get more of the power. You have the decline assist control, which is basically going to let the vehicle descend on its own and modulate the brakes for you on the very steep, scary hills. And then the button for the safety connect system. So that's going to come standard on all new Toyotas for 1 year unlimited miles, and it acts as a recovery system in case you get into an accident or have an emergency. Then we have a simple switch. Lights come on with the doors, or lights don't come on with the doors. Nothing in between. In the middle we have a little pilot light, which is a simple white light, which is going to kind of shine down, and it's going to give you a very dim light here so you can just see what's going on without it being distracting. And then behind these slightly tinted crystalline lenses here, we have a simple pusher for the map lights, which make it easy to read whatever is in your lap or see what you're eating. And that concludes the overhead buttons. Of course, real quick before we move on, in the back we just have a simple button here. Well, lever for better for off, door, and on for the rear light for the rear passengers. Working our way down right before the screen, we have the 4 main vents here. Next to each vent, you'll see a little wheel. And the little wheel has a symbol with these little flowing arrows for airflow and an X for a closed vent. So you'll see the white notch. I can use this little rubber wheel here to turn the airflow to that individual vent off, low, medium, medium high, or full ventilation in that vent. So you won't have the dual zone climate, 2 different temps on the SR5, but at least you can control the amount of airflow. So say you got the AC blasting because your passenger is on the hot side, but you're getting kind of cold, you can at least kill the vents and they'll get even more cold air there, which then they'll soon cool down and be more agreeable to go back to your temperature that you wanted it to. I have a nice big button here for the hazards. Very easy to use. It doesn't light up like in the, actually, hold on. I see some light here, so that was hard to tell during the day. So it will light up, which is nice because it does that in the truck as well, the Tacoma. Simple, easy to use, so you can communicate with people. And then above, the coveted and the loved old school Toyota clock. So I can push and hold to change the hours, push and hold to change the minutes. Super easy to read, super easy to use, and it matches the clock that's on here, just in case that's a little easier for me or my passenger to see. Still nice that I got the old school one. So say I want to turn my screen off. I still have a clock right there, which is really nice. And on the Tacoma, when I turn my screen off, I don't know what time it is, unless my watch has some lume. But speaking of lume, let's brighten up this screen here and talk about what this technology is. So the last part of the tutorial, the 4Runner screen. So you have a simple screen here. This is the 8-inch touchscreen. On most Toyotas, you'll have two main knobs, one for tune and scroll on the radio, the other for the power or the volume. Of course, like I mentioned, you can change the volume here. And then you have 4 main buttons on each side. Toyota does put the more important buttons closer to the driver, which you'll see the buttons over here are what I call redundancies, or more passenger used buttons, because I can access the phone button on the steering wheel. I can also seek and track right here. Now the apps button is slightly outdated because that's just going to get me set up with my Entune app suite, or if you're going to connect a remote connect with vehicles that are equipped, it'll have the app for the authorization. Let me know what you think about Entune App Suite down below if you've used it. And it would be more convenient for the passenger to access the phone menu to call somebody while you're driving or change the songs instead of asking you to do so. They can just do it from their side, which is why those buttons are on that side. Now, the buttons on the left. You have, see, there's the authorization for that remote connect. The home button, which is important to the driver because you can see different information all at once, or you can just tap the information and it'll take over the whole screen. The menu button, which will have some different widgets for you to change some settings, see some different information, or even turn that screen off like I showed you before. The audio button is going to bring you to your audio sources. AM, FM, Sirius radio, which is complimentary on every new Toyota for 90 days. Bluetooth connection or an old school USB plug, say you want to plug it in directly to an iPhone or maybe an MP3 player, might work. Of course, I can reorder them. And then down to map. When equipped with a map in-house, the map will show you this. On most Toyotas that don't have the map in-house, when you push the map button, it's going to give you a little window that says you need to download an app. It's referencing the Scout GPS Link app. If you've used that app, let me know what you think of it down below. But what most people will do at that point is they won't download that app. They'll just plug the phone in or connect wirelessly if it has the wireless CarPlay. And when connected, either with the connection or wirelessly, they can use whatever map they like. So they don't need to use this. You'll have your Apple Maps, Google Maps, Waze, and when you push that, it'll go to whatever app you used last, which is nice. Since this has the equipped in-house navigation, you can choose between using the Toyota navigation, which is fine, or plugging it in and using Waze, Apple Maps, or Google Maps. Now a little bit more advanced. You can tell what screen you're in because on the top left, it'll tell you where you're at. So you'll see, if you're getting lost in the beginning, what screen is actually showing in your face. This home screen, which is a nice screen, you can edit. Now it's set in its most optimal orientation right now because the phone, which when you're connected to Bluetooth will have 4 little spots here to create a shortcut for like a one-touch call for the 4 most important people. That's great because you won't have to push the phone symbol on your steering wheel, then find the person in the menu, find your favorites. It turns a 6-click process into 1 click. So when you connect to Bluetooth, this little thing here where it says phone is going to show you 4 little slots that says select contact to set. Really nice because you just tap them and it starts the phone call right away. The audio makes sense because generally people want to see what song an artist is playing. And then the map is a little bigger because you're going to see that playing in the background while these two are operating. Of course, you can just tap that to make it bigger. So in my opinion, this is the most optimal setup for the home screen. But say you want to change it. You go to menu, then you go to setup, and then you would just go to customize home screen. Oops, sorry, right here. I can change the layout like this between a couple different layouts, and I can also pick different information to show. So just tap it, then I can select where it goes like that. I'm not going to change it because I really do like this setup. Now down to menu. For destination, it'll prompt me to set a destination for when I'm traveling with the Toyota map. For audio, a slight redundancy, it'll just bring me back to the audio menu. But cool that they have it for the beginners that first got the car. Phone, another redundancy. It's just going to prompt me to connect Bluetooth or do what this button does and go to the phone menu so the passenger can call somebody. And it's also going to do the same thing this does, which is going to get me to the phone menu so I can select somebody to call. Now we're in the menu. The apps button is going to do the same as this. So it's just going to prompt me over to that, which I'll show you. So the authorization for remote connect, Toyota notifications, or setting up my Wi-Fi trial, which this one has. And then when I get the Entune app suite, it's going to unlock a couple other things. Most people do prefer the connected thing like Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, but you still have the option. For projection, when I'm connected, it kind of gets me set up for those connections like Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Now we're digging into some of the meat. Eco. It's going to show me in real time how my economy is. Not a big concern of most 4Runner people, but in case you wonder. And for history, it'll show me my last few trips as the days go on. Back to info here. Traffic incidents, I do need an HD signal. Weather, I do need an HD signal. And I can even see a weather map, which is pretty cool. And I can even scroll out. So say we got some hurricane weather coming. I can see at a distance what our weather is looking like. So say I'm doing a big travel. Say I'm gonna head up to Maine and I got a big storm coming up this way. I can kind of see what's going on and how I'm comparing. And if I really want to, and I'm doing some camping cross country, I can steer myself out of the way, away from where that storm is, which is nice. On vehicle history alert, it's just gonna let me know some things that it sensed, a little more useful for the technicians. And yeah, that's everything in the information, which is a part of the menu. The last little widget here on the menu is the one that you'll like the most, setup. So for setup, I have two columns. The skinny column will let me do some Bluetooth setup, which is just gonna, again, prompt me to connect my phone. Some audio setup. Basic phone settings, which I can't show you because I'm not connected to Bluetooth. The voice settings are advanced, so there's a lot of stuff in here. I'm not going to go over everything individually, just for the sake of keeping the video concise. But the main one would be the train voice recognition, which is still on this page. When you press that, Toyota's going to have you read like 5 minutes of weird sentences so it can recognize your voice. Pretty cool stuff for voice commands and audio technology. Vehicle settings is what you're going to love. So for maintenance, I can actually set when I did things or when I want to do things as the vehicle ages, so that I can maintain the vehicle not only the way Toyota tells me to, but maybe I can do things a little more proactively or earlier. Say I'm putting a little bit more use on the vehicle's drivetrain. Of course, I can set to dealer, and you get reminders, which is great, especially for people that are adamant about making their Toyotas last forever. But back down to vehicle settings. Vehicle customization, I love because I can change the door lock settings and the light settings. So for door lock settings, most Toyotas, if you check out that door lock right there, when I put it into drive, it locks. And when I put it into park, it unlocks all the doors. If I'm a little bit more security minded and I want the Toyota to keep the doors locked when I put it into park, I can do that by hitting door lock settings, and the automatic door unlock I can turn off. Now I just hit the back button here. See how it's unlocked? I'm gonna go into drive. Now watch, that door should stay locked when I put it back in park. Check that out. More security, so I don't have any unwanted surprise friends jumping in my car to join me. And what's really nice is on the 4Runner, you'll feel a little resistance here on the door handle. So even though the door is locked, I don't need to fish around and look for the unlock button like on some cars, which I don't like. I just pull the door like that and it unlocks for me. So I go into drive. I just parked. I'm counting some money. I'm eating my lunch. Say I need to jump out. I get to jump out. There's no guesswork, there's no surprises, there's no delayed time trying to get out of my 4Runner if I choose to select that door lock setting, which is great. Couple other door lock settings here. You can totally mix and match. So say I want the doors to stay unlocked all the time because we're doing a lot of stop go and I don't want to blow out my door lock mechanism in 50,000 miles. Not that that happens, but you know, say I just want to preserve the locks and I don't want them flipping on and off. I can set it with these, so you can mix and match. I can also change the remote to press unlock here. I can choose what doors unlock and when, how long it takes the vehicle to relock itself when I unlock it with the remote. Yes, it does have that feature. I can even, which I've changed on my personal vehicle, turn on or off the lock feedback lights. So when you hit the remote, if you don't want it to blink, you can turn off the blink so that you're not as easily identified when you're heard. And say you don't want to be heard, you can actually turn the tone all the way down to nothing so that when you unlock it, it doesn't make a tone. Say the tone is not loud enough, you can turn it up a couple more than factory. Say you're like me and the factory tone is a little loud. Say you get up early in the morning or you really just don't want everybody knowing when you're getting in your car, you can just turn it down a couple notches so that it can only be heard from about 4 or 5 feet away. So really great that in the 4Runner you can totally customize just to enhance your enjoyment for basic uses of the truck. Below the lock settings are the light settings, another fun thing to play with. So when you leave the lights on and you shut the car off, it's actually going to leave the headlights on for a certain amount of time to light up your driveway. Say you have a longer driveway, you can set it to longer so that when you turn the 4Runner off, those headlights will stay on as a courtesy so you can see where you're walking and then they'll turn off. But a fun fact about Toyotas, when those headlights stay on when you turn the car off, say even though you have it set to 30 seconds, you just want them off real quick, you hit the lock button once and then twice, and then the headlights will be turned off right away. The daytime runner lights. So say I don't want daytime runner lights, I have the opportunity to turn them off there. This is not as useful on a 4Runner that has the dedicated DRLs. This is a little bit more useful for a 4Runner that has the auto feature, and for people who want to leave it in auto but don't want the daytime runner lights on when the auto feature's on and they only want the headlights to come on at night. So say you want that total lights off during the day, total lights on during the night thing going on, that's where that comes in handy. And then the interior lights timer, you can increase to 30 seconds, which I have on my personal because when I turn the vehicle off, the dome lights come on and I like a little bit more time to see what I'm doing because I have a lot of stuff I bring with me. And the exterior lights. So you can fully customize the lights. And just as a reminder, that's your menu, setup, and you go down to vehicle customization. That's how you get there. Let's continue on by hitting back. So we got some navigation settings here, so I can set home, set favorites, areas to avoid, detailed Navi settings. For detailed Navi settings, a lot of stuff here. So low fuel warning pop-up I can turn on and off, unverified roads, guidance, crazy stuff for the navigators of the world, calibration, adaptive route. I'm not going to explain every one individually, but yeah, you can play with those. For the Wi-Fi, it's just going to prompt me to get connected. What's nice is if you live out in the boonies where you don't get a lot of service, you can make this thing a Wi-Fi hotspot so you can play with your laptop, do your tablet, do some business, make some calls, etc. And another redundancy here. Just some stuff about my apps. I can even see my data usage message. I can turn that on. The apps don't use a lot of data, but there are people that actually worry about that. Auto Detect iPhone app is when you connect it to the CarPlay, it's going to put on whatever apps it detects that are automatically available to both. For the traffic with an HD signal, I can select what kind of information the traffic warnings are going to give me. And for data services, simple. HD radio and DCM or HD only. The DCM is your control module. That's kind of like how the truck is communicating with the system behind the screen. More information kind of for like the technicians when they're doing problem solving and updates for the screen, but that's our left screen here. If we go back to setup, we did everything on the left. Now let's do everything on the right. On the right side of the setup, I can quickly change my clock. Remember, I have a separate ancient clock here. I can change my language, customize home screen, which I showed you, some projection settings, which we went over in the other menu. I can turn the beep on and off. So see, say the beep's a little annoying. I can change the color theme, so say I want it a little sportier. Check that out. And it changes the shape. Pretty cool. But I'm going to keep it white for now because it's going to reduce the amount of bounce back and reflection. I can also change my temperature. Say I brought it to a different country, or I'm just, I have people from a different country visiting and we want to go off of their units. Same thing here. And some advanced keyboard settings and animation stuff right over here. I can check for a software update every couple months, which we just updated before. And yeah, so that's pretty much everything that's important here. The sway warning sensitivity level can be changed right over there as well, which is interesting. Or actually, no, I don't think that's the sway warning. That's a software item there. I'm going to have to look into that, guys, because I've never used this option right here. So we did the left and the right column of the setup, which is part of the menu here, the main menu. That's the meat and potatoes of the screen. Just one little gold nugget I wanted to show you before we finish up the video. Remember, the home screen is where you'll spend most of your time. You can tap something to make it take over the screen. When the music's playing, it'll show here. When you're connected on a Bluetooth, it'll show here. But there's a little thing in the bottom we forgot, display. That's where I can turn the screen off. And I can listen to music, I can change the volume, I can receive phone calls. The screen will stay off. And I can simply dim down the gauges right here. And all of this bright stuff, like most new cars have, won't be as blinding and bright if I don't want it to be. You have the choice, which is great. I can hit any button I want to turn that screen back on. And back in display, I can even do some general settings like the contrast, the brightness, and it'll show me examples here, see? So I can see examples of what things would look like. And the camera. So I can change the brightness and contrast to that camera. Just another pro tip before we conclude the tutorial video is when you're connected to here, when you have the Apple CarPlay or the Android Auto, your phone is going to ask you first for permission. Make sure you say yes. I also suggest allowing permission when the phone is locked. That way you don't have to keep your phone unlocked while it's plugged in for the Apple CarPlay. And you will be operating off of two main interfaces, which can get confusing for people. So I kind of hinted at it when I talked about the audio controls. You push once for the Toyota's version of the audio controls. You push and hold for the Apple or Android version like the Siri and Google. Same thing going on here. You'll notice the Toyota style of the interface, and you'll know right away when you're on the Android or the Apple style of the interface. So when plugged in, you can bounce back between the two. So if you want to go back to this, you can, and then on the home screen, you'll see a little selection that says CarPlay, and you tap it. Sometimes it'll do it automatically, and it's going to favor the phone. So just don't feel like the vehicle's breaking. Don't feel like it's messing up when you plug it in and right away it doesn't connect, or it's a little wonky at first, or if you keep bouncing back and forth. If you're using Waze or Google Maps and you hit this, it's going to look like this because you're telling it to go back to the Toyota menu. There's no Apple or Android menu where you can change the time to the 4Runner or the color theme to the 4Runner. So to get back to the CarPlay, you would want to go home and hit CarPlay or hit Android Auto, etc. So that concludes the screen. We went over the buttons on the door, underneath the dash, up the dash, Speedo Cluster, MID, steering wheel, buttons by the shifter, the 4x4 system, climate control, overhead features, and finished up with the screen. If there's anything I left out, it was probably the reverse camera, which just shows you a line, your bumper line, and then two other lines with a little notch for the vehicle center. It's not dynamic, so it doesn't change while you're doing this. I suggest just using the mirrors to see how straight you are with the body lines and the pavement lines, and then use this to see how close you are. And for the parking brake, there's no electronic parking brake. It's just a push brake. Make sure you push the brake while you do this, and you'll see the little park symbol right here. And to disengage it, push the brake, and while pushing the brake, give it a push and release, and your parking brake kicks off. Takes regular gas. Change your oil, guys. Wash it. Wash the underbody. Take care of it. Love it. Enjoy it. If you enjoyed this video and it helped you, please let me know down below. please consider subscribing. I promise you it'll be worth it because I'll give you the cutting edge view from an insider on all the Toyotas. And once again, this is Brian. Thank you for visiting. If you have a 4Runner and you love it, let me know. If there's anything you wish would change, let me know down below, because you know you can always catch me in the comments. What do you think the new 4Runner is going to be like, guys? Let me know down below. I will catch you. Peace.